I wanted to raise the specter of algorithmic justice, as we did in the TikTok censorship issue, the changing nature of tracking and cookies and collecting data in the emerging advertising issue, and then note that law enforcement were cooperating with private sector, with companies, to create extensive surveillance networks so that we could talk about our fourth topic of today. This is usually a research or a policy issue or a technology, an emergent technology that we need to be paying attention to. And this was sent by one of my readers. And this is one of our subscribers who is a retired intelligence analyst. He goes by the alias Ty Webb from Caddyshack, but his real identity he can't disclose. But he's someone who used to work in the U.S. intelligence community. And so whenever he sends me a news article, whenever he sends me a subject or a story tip, I always dig into it because I always know it's going to be juicy. I always know it's going to be deep. And this one blew my mind. And, partly because I sort of knew that this technology existed, but I hadn't really gotten into it. But also because Merlatron, who lives here at the Academy of the Impossible, he keeps joking about how he wants to build automatic turrets to protect the property, so that if anyone unauthorized comes onto the property, we've got these automatic guns that defend us. Of course, they would be like, paintball guns or, some equivalent non-lethal device. But out in the real world, this is where we do have to be aware that lethal autonomous weapons are not only being developed, they're being deployed. And these are dangerous because, as we've discussed already in today's episode, robots make mistakes. Algorithms make mistakes. They don't have the nuance to be able to judge accordingly. And that's where the autonomous robo-snipers and suicide drones currently being deployed in Israel raise a lot of concerns. Partly because Israel, as an arms manufacturer, sells their technology and sell their weaponry to other countries around the world, not necessarily democratic countries. And I think that's one reason why we need to be really concerned. But also because, Israel is engaged in a kind of apartheid state in which they are denying Palestinians their rights. They're denying Palestinians freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, even freedom of expression. Now, Israel claims that they do this all under the need to defend themselves from terrorist attacks. And there's some truth to the fact that Israel is subject to a high amount of terror attacks and terror incidents. But they don't need automated killing machines to do so. And they don't need automated weapons that do not have the necessary controls and oversights that we as a society need to insist on. And that's where the development of these robo-snipers and the development of these suicide drones and other types of battlefield robots are incredibly disturbing. Again, not just because of their use in Israel, which is disturbing enough, but their use in exporting that technology anywhere in the world, because the lesson we should take from Talon AI is that it's neighborhood associations who are going to buy this technology, right? It's gated communities that are going to have autonomous robo-snipers and suicide drones protecting their communities, enabling them to be racist so that if anyone they think is suspicious, i.e. doesn't look like them, comes anywhere near the property, then they're going to smoke them. Like, that's crazy. And that's exactly where I could see this type of technology going. And it's precisely why we need to be really concerned and careful about the way in which this type of technology is proliferating. Now, this article does point out that these systems maintain what are called man in the loop or human in the loop. And it's the idea that while these systems are fully autonomous, they still have some level of human oversight and control. I'm personally quite critical of that. I don't actually think that that's going to be the case. I kind of feel that the human in control, that human could zone out. That human could think they're playing a video game. that human could dehumanize the target and not realize, the reason as to why they shouldn't shoot, or the realizing that why, these weapons or machines are immoral. And the article sort of elaborates on that. I think that it's not just about shooting humans. It's the deterrent of it. It's the fear. I mean, as it stands, post-traumatic stress disorder exists anywhere that the U.S. military has been using drone strikes, because just the sound of a drone overhead can terrorize a community, can terrorize a region. And so just having these types of weapons employed, I think, is an act of terror unto itself. And it's really disturbing when we think about the way in which these types of weapons will be proliferating. And that once they are out there as a concept, I'm joking when I say that home ownership or home associations or gated communities are going to adopt these types of defensive mechanisms. But it's not a joke. We know that that's going to happen. We know in America that type of aggressive defensiveness is already part of a paranoid and polarized populace. So the fact that this technology is out there is something that we really need to be concerned about. Merlotron pointed out that the system we would install here at the Academy of the Impossible would be just trained to shoot bears. But even then, Merle, we don't want to hurt the bear. We just want to discourage the bear. And that's why I was saying the non-lethal systems, I think, are what we should put on. Malicious Decay also points out quite wisely, what about the fact that these systems have all been hackable? Malicious Decay has been a network penetration hobbyist for years, and the one thing they've learned is that nothing is secure. Exactly! Right? That in and of itself is the primary argument against autonomous lethal weapons or autonomous killing machines. They can be hacked. And so not only does that mean that someone else can unauthorized engage in lethal violence, but you could also disguise who is responsible. Because that's the other side of hacking, is that not only can any system be hacked, but anyone can be framed for the hacking of that system. So imagine an entire war being started because someone hacked into a lethal killing machine and then changed the way in which that was sourced or who is responsible. I mean, that's ludicrous. And that's another reason why even if you have the kind of man in the loop or human in the loop, that's still not sufficient controls to allow this weaponry to take place. So, I put robo-snipers in our kind of research or clip of the day because just like Talon AI, this is something that we got to keep an eye on or that we need to pay attention to moving forward.